Good evening. This is a meeting of the North Andover Board of Health, Thursday, November the 18th, 2021, 7 p.m. I'm Joe McCarthy, Board Chairman, and other board members in attendance are Daphne LaFleur, Michelle Davis, to my immediate right, Dr. Pat Scanlon, and to his right, Max Tilson. Department members in attendance, Brian LaGrasse, and also to his right, Steve Casey. So we have a quorum. Actually, all members of the board are here right now. So the meeting is open, and the first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of meeting minutes, June 24th and July 22nd of this year. Michelle?
Both have been reviewed, edited, and are good to be approved. So I make a motion to approve them.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Minutes have been approved. New business, a hearing. 207 Mass Ave, Mark Walsh is the owner, and he's appealing several citations. Would you like to, is he here right now?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what happens is when we get a complaint, we follow up with a health department inspection. Upon those inspections, if we find violations, we document them and create orders to correct. Those orders to correct are delivered under 105 CMR 410, and in that Code of Massachusetts regulation, there is an appeal process, an appeal period as well, that anybody served in order to correct can appeal to the Board of Health. Now, the owner of this particular property has appealed the order letter submitted from the Health Department to the Board of Health. Now, upon this order and this appeal, you're going to have three options. You can sustain the order, modify it, or withdraw it. So Steve will give you the details of the actual inspection and the order itself, and the owner here is here to discuss his appeal and appeal to the board on doing one of those three options.
Steve?
Can I say your mic? I think this mic isn't working. So to echo Brian, we had basically gotten a complaint back in August, and we had gone out, done an inspection, documented some findings. For the most part, those findings Mark has corrected at this point. I think out of a total of 14, I think he's only appealing 4. So the ones Mark is appealing is a citation regarding the buildup of a mold-like substance over the ceiling, on the ceiling over the shower. The wall next to the shower had evidence of water damage, so he's appealing regarding investigating the source of the water and repairing the wall. The cabinet next to the toilet in the bathroom had evidence of water damage as well, and the order was to repair the cabinet to be free of defects. And the final item was that there was central air conditioning that was provided with the home that was not working at the time of the inspection, and so he was appealing repairing that air conditioning system.
So basically, there are several things that we can do. One is to accept the findings as written. The other is to perhaps extend the time on one or more, and or eliminate one or more. And the last thing we can do is eliminate all 4. At that, would you like to speak further, please?
We don't have copies of it.
Oh, you don't have a copy of that? Okay.
It's all good.
So first off, I just wanted to thank everyone for taking some time out of your evening, and we'll try to get you home in time for the Patriots game, for sure. But I just, I did want to provide a little bit of background. Again, as you guys identified, my name is Mark Walsh. I am the owner of 407 Mass Ave, and my wife Ellen with me here tonight. I thought it was just important, once I got the notification from the town in August, just to give you a little bit of background on the tenants. They've been in the home for 8 years, 8 years actually this month, and I've had some challenges. 2017 they fell behind on the rent. I had to serve them a notice to quit, and they did at least come through with that, and they paid the back rent that was due. They started to fall behind again in November of 2019, and at that point, I let them, with the holidays right around the corner, I waited till the beginning of 2020, and having gone through this process once with them before, I decided that it was time to either raise the rent or for them to move out. And I did present them with a new lease at the beginning of February 2020, which they refused to sign. And of course, we know what happened in March, and that, needless to say, set everything going sideways as far as trying to have tenants move. Since then, they have continually fallen behind on the rent. As of a couple of weeks ago, they were over $16,000 behind, which again is quite a sum of money. They did get some relief, from RAFTA. I did receive a check about a couple of weeks ago, but they're still, almost $5,000 behind in the rent. So it's, for me and my wife, it's been a continual challenge over the last 2 years plus to try to, again, get them to try to move on. In May, I did present them with an offer to actually waive all past debt and help them move into a new place, keys for cash. And needless to say, when I got the notice from the town in August to say that they called to complain about some things going on in the basement, which turned out was their responsibility, not even mine, it was a little bit of a kick in the pants. So, I've since hired an attorney, but I did abide by Stevens, as far as the pictures that were taken with respect to some of the damages. Some were absolutely legitimate and fair, and I did correct. But, there's language in the lease that speaks about, that the tenant keeps the premises as it was presented to them, which back in 2013, I did present it to them in a good shape. There wasn't a broken storm window. There wasn't the heat register off the wall. And certainly the bathroom and the damage that's in there, that to me is just, it's neglect on their part. That's water damage that just doesn't occur overnight. They did call me this past summer to complain about a leak in the toilet, and I was down there within a couple of days. I couldn't get to it right away just because of work. They were doing their best to clean it up, and then we repaired it. It started leaking again. I just brought a plumber in, and I replaced the whole toilet. But to me, mold in the ceiling, I mean, there are cleaners that can take care of that. If there's water that's outside of the shower area, that tells me that, they have, at the time he was 7, he's now 15. I don't think the shower curtain was being administered properly. There shouldn't be water outside of the tub. And then certainly, again, the water damage that's around the toilet and by the vanity, that, like I said, that didn't happen overnight. So, with respect to the central air conditioning, there's nothing in the lease agreement that says I provide central air. And quite honestly, to me, I think that's an amenity. That's a nice to have. There's nothing, and if you need a copy of the lease, I'm more than happy to give it to you. But essentially,
That's one question I have. Is central air a
Requirement?
A requirement?
No, so air conditioning as itself isn't a requirement. Heat is, but the reason it was cited is because there's almost a like a catch-all in the code that basically speaks to if you provide something with the unit at the time it's rented, you are responsible for making sure it works. So, for example, there's nothing in the code that requires you to have like a dishwasher, but if you provide one and then it breaks down, the way the code language is written, it speaks to the landlord having to make the repair because it was provided with the unit.
And that's anything that's like physically attached to the unit, like you can't give them a space heater, if the space heater breaks, the landlord has to give a new space heater, it's,
Microwave, dishwasher.
Yeah, it's like like electronics, I think, and
Yeah.
there's electronics, yeah. Oh, boy.
So,
Okay.
part of the code, it does take the emotion out of it, and I realize what you guys are going through. Believe me, this is not my first rodeo with tenants and landlord disputes. But taking that out of it, it is in the code that if you do provide it, you have to maintain it. And that's why it was cited. Granted, no one's using central air in November, trust me. But it's there, and it wasn't working back in August, which is when we would actually use it. Who knows when they're gonna move out, if they're gonna move out, what you guys will work out with them moving forward, but as part of the house as a rental property, it was cited.
Okay.
That's why it's in the
Thank you.
little letter.
Sorry about that. It's
No, that's okay.
clarification.
No, I appreciate that. I guess, again, I just wanted you to, basically hear me out. This is the only property I own, and between Ellen and I, from previous marriages, we have 5 kids. We put 2 through college. We got 3 more in college right now, and the tenants are very much aware. My whole premise is I would love to sell the house. Just given where the market is right now, I don't need the property anymore, and quite honestly, the hassle that I've put up with for the last 2 years is put some more gray hair up top here. So, again, I appreciate your consideration, and I will absolutely abide by, whatever your finding or ruling is. I'm not one here to turn around and be a rebel and not take care of what is going to be asked of me. But, there are clauses in that says that the tenant can be held responsible for damages that were caused, and that's an agreement that's been signed 8 years ago. And unfortunately, any new leases I presented, they have refused to sign, so I've been stuck.
So we don't go by leases here, we only go by the housing code.
Okay.
So, for instance, if you have any leases, they have to provide their own snow removal, and they don't, and they call us, and we go there, and there's a driveway full of snow, we have to cite you, because you own the property, and that's part of the housing code, is snow and ice removal.
I do, well,
You know,
I do
that's-
provide the snow removal.
Right,
And
but
pay for it.
if you had it in your lease, which we've seen before.
Yep.
Tenants are responsible for their own single-family home, sidewalk, driveway, whatever.
Right.
And if there's an issue, then we have to fall back on the owner to take care of that, because that's the code.
it's kind of similar to, for example, one of the citations in the original letter had to do with pests, but the way the code is written, if it's a single-family home, it's on the occupant or the tenant to remove the pests, whereas if it's like a duplex or a multifamily, it falls on the landlord. It's like Brian said, it's language in the housing code for some of these citations that dictates who corrects it.
Landlords can go whatever they want in the lease, somebody signs it, and the tenant has to be accountable for it until we get involved, then we have to go by the law.
Yep.
When I first became aware of these findings, I said to myself, I think I'm missing something here, because they're all relatively minor, and I did speak further with both Brian and Steve, and I sense that there was bad blood, and unfortunately, that's what appears to be. But looking at the findings, ceiling above the shower has evidence of mold-like substance. Wall next to shower has evidence of water damage. Cabinet next to toilet has evidence of water damage. And of course, the broken air conditioning, the central air conditioning. Looking at them, I'm saying, they're really minor. There's not much of, for example, the mold. I mean, 1 part of water, 5 parts of bleach. Put it on it. Whoa. Thank you for having caught that. Wow. A good thing I didn't say you could do this with your hands. But a little water, a little bleach, 5 parts of water, 1 part of bleach, and it cleans off pretty well. Maybe need a little bit of paint and primer on it. And the other 2 are relatively minor. Unfortunately, there's only so much that we can do, because the further citations and details on the CMR, the Code of Massachusetts Regulations here, which says that indeed, you are responsible, correct me if I'm mistaken on this, And I certainly would like to, at this particular time, because I know what you're going through, I'd like to open up for further discussion. First, I'd like to hear what, do you recommend that we stay with this? Do you recommend that we give them any wiggly room as far as, for example, the element of time, certainly for the air conditioning? Because they're not going to use that for 4 or 6 more months.
So
What can we do for them, if anything at all?
when we issue an order to correct under the housing code, we have limitations on our timeline. 24 hours, 5 days, 30 days is what we get to play with. So you can modify that as the board and change the deadlines that we have to do under the code. You guys can do your own deadlines as a board. You guys are the approving authority for these. So shower mold, water damage, that's quick, easy. AC, they don't need now. You could do an extension on that and give them a few months or whatever, because they don't have to have heat. You have to have heat until
June.
June 15th.
Yep.
So when they turn the heat off, they're going to turn the AC on. So you can extend it to June. I mean, whatever you guys think is appropriate for something like air conditioning, because they're not being used right now. So if it was a dishwasher or a built-in microwave or something like that, I'd say you have to fix it now. But if you guys want to do some wiggle room, give them some time to fix that. If it's not an urgent, necessary appliance at this point, I'd go for that.
I have a question about the damage on the side of the vanity in the bathroom. Is
Yeah.
it,
Particle board just kind of probably rotting away.
well, I mean, is it, yeah, because is it still like functional? Like, where do you draw the
Yeah.
line of saying that, oh, a little bit of water fell on the side, and then you get the typical water damage that, like,
Yeah.
I'm sure I probably have on the side of
So
my.
the way the code kind of spells it out, this one's more of like a little bit of an extensive citation, like it's about a paragraph long. But one of the things it hits on is that these items should be free from holes, cracks, loose plaster, and other defects where they'd basically be difficult to keep the area clean. It's intact, the bottom of the vanity. For the most part, I think it's mostly just kind of like flexing and bowing and things like that. But I'd say it's structurally sound. Like it's not going to fall over or collapse. It's just more of an issue of being able to clean it is what the housing citation relates to.
I saw all the pictures.
Yep.
And once again, not much there. Not much there at all, except for the air conditioning,
Yeah.
which is central and could be big bucks. So I'd like to open up for further discussion in the board and perhaps a motion as to where to from here after the discussion.
Do you recommend taking it maybe piece by piece, or?
You can make one motion.
Well, I'm just thinking about that, because I think the air conditioning, we kind of.
Yeah, so I
You
guess
can do two.
Okay.
I was
One,
going to
two.
say,
I mean, I would make a motion to to delay the air conditioning to, what was it, June?
June 15th is when.
I think June 15th is, June 14th then,
Okay.
right? I made a motion to push the air conditioning to be fixed by June 14th of 2022.
And withhold the other three.
Well, I mean,
So for-
yeah, I think that could be
for your reference with those we gave about a 14-day fix
okay.
from when we get the certified mail back. So the current timeline, I think the current time frame was we still had it at 14 days. So if you want, you could keep it at 14 days. You could go a little higher. You could go a little lower. It's up to you guys as far as that goes. I just wanted to give you the time
I
frame.
mean, I guess I'm just more, can we just, we'll do this motion first, and then we can talk about the other ones?
Sure.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to postpone the order to fix the central air conditioning until June 14th, which is the last possible date that we have allowed to us to have you guys fix the central air. So at least buys you well enough time to try to hopefully figure something else out with that.
Is there a second?
Second that motion.
Yeah. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Okay.
I guess my question on the other ones is, I mean, I'm not really sure whether or not some of these things are even significant that they even warrant that need to be fixed, I guess, whether or not that we just kind of abandon the motion or abandon it altogether. But I'm the only
My
one.
thought was that, like, uphold the mold and, like, let go of the other two was kind of where my gut was.
Yeah.
Because the other two are damage to a structure that is sound, but,
Okay.
you know, that's kind of what
Yeah,
I was
that's what I
thinking.
was kind of thinking too.
Yeah, I don't want to undermine, I wasn't there and I didn't see it, so I don't want to undermine you as the inspector to
Sure.
say that in your vision as the inspector, these were significant issues and I wasn't there. I can't my eyes weren't there.
So I would say like the mold, as far as that goes, I think that's a pretty common thing we run into just because there's moisture in the bathrooms, you know what I mean? It's something we do end up citing a lot just because of ventilation in bathrooms. The water damage on the wall next to the shower, it definitely poses like more of an issue as far as maybe cleanability goes. Obviously, again, the wall's not going to collapse. That would be a much bigger issue. But I'd say there's clearly more damage to the wall than there would be to the vanity. The vanity, again, is just more of like a warping towards the bottom that would maybe present an issue with cleaning.
Is it possible just to give more time? I know I want to be lenient. It's the holidays and you have 5 kids, putting 3 to college now and everything else, just to kind of give some time to address those issues.
That's an option.
So I think just giving them some time, even if it's a few more days, that's just how I feel, just to kind of address those.
And we're allowed as the board, we can put any type of timeline
Yep.
we want, correct?
So, yeah, you can modify, withdraw, or hold. And the modification, you can do either a timeline or pretty much a timeline at this point.
And as Steve said earlier, the wall next to the shower and the cabinet next to the toilet are structurally sound.
Yeah, it's not
So
like
it's
either one of
not
those
that big of a
is going to
job.
collapse.
Personally, I think those 3 jobs probably would take altogether no more than a few hours to address by handyman. It's just not that much to it. But it is an issue.
Yeah,
They are issues.
it's a violation technically under the housing
Exactly.
code.
Exactly. So we're looking at right now possibly or probably extending the time for the first 3. We already voted on the air conditioning, extending the time to,
July 14th, 2022.
well, I'm talking about.
Or June
No,
14th,
no, no, no,
sorry.
I'm talking about these other 3.
Yeah.
And as Daphne said, hey, look, we're going into the holidays right now. Let's give them a little bit of
Thinking
slack
like a
on the
little-
time on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially,
Yeah.
that's how I feel, maybe until the end of January or something like that to address it
Yeah,
going into
I think that's
February, that's what I was
Okay.
thinking.
Okay. Make a motion then?
Motion to extend the time till the end of January 2022.
On the
For
first
the
3.
for the
items.
mold
Yeah.
and the water damage and the cabinet.
Can that motion just be contingent on me being able to get a contractor, which is, as you probably are aware, for any home improvements, is awfully hard to find these days?
If
How is
they,
this addressed?
I was gonna say if you
Yeah.
put a date in, usually I know there's an issue with getting contractors now for sure. We've had other housing cases that we've set deadlines that they've basically just the landlord will keep in contact with me and just give me some sort of proof that they have a contractor coming or that they've been attempting to.
Does he have to go to a contractor to do it, or could he do it himself?
I mean, there's some things I can do, but I'm not the most handy person, you know?
My recommendation would be to, if you extend it to January 31st, definitely do that. I think with the weather turning colder, a lot of contractors are moving their work inside now.
Yeah.
So maybe it's easier to get an inside contractor versus an exterior contractor at this point. So we
But,
can
I
keep
mean,
in contact.
we understand.
Yeah.
For sure, that if you can't get anything.
And quite honestly, you know, the vanity, the fact that there's warping, and again, when that day comes that I can get them out of the home, I'll probably replace the whole vanity itself. Just not trying to fix one side, and it's a small, very small vanity. I'll probably just replace the whole thing and then replace all the trim around the toilet
Sure.
and just make it look better.
Yeah.
So that's my intent, at
Okay.
least, anyway.
Okay.
I'll second your motion.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, say no.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
All right. We hope this helps a little bit for you guys.
I hope your Christmas is not too stressful, considering.
All right, yep, we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Same to you.
Communications, announcements, and discussions of COVID-19. I'd like to turn it over to Brian, and I'll have a few comments myself after, and then our doctors will be speaking further on that. So,
All right.
Brian, it's yours.
I mean, generally speaking, in terms of our COVID update, we've definitely been seeing an overall increase. We've seen a couple of waves. Back in the middle of October, we saw a peak, and then it went back down again. Now we're seeing a second peak, middle of November. The ebb and flow of a virus. If you look at the pages that I gave you, these are charts that I publish every week onto our website, so people can take a look and see the numbers in better form. People see a spreadsheet, they just look at the numbers, and that's that. But these graphs show you the waves. And we kind of go through different data points that we keep track of here. This goes back to the middle of July. Before July 4th, we had 0 cases, and we thought we were through this and clear for a while. And then things started to pick back up, and they went pretty much straight up until the middle of October, and then they came back down. I thought we were in the clear at that point, and now we're back up again. So a little bit of a roller coaster ride. Currently, as of today, before the meeting, we were at 112 cases, which is the exact same number we had last week. This may go up between now and midnight. When I publish these numbers, I wait until midnight of Thursday. The state comes out with the state data as well on Thursday. So I take the state data and I take our data, I merge them together, and I come up with these charts and graphs.
Do you have an age breakout?
I do not break it out by age. The state does. I don't on these charts. There's a spreadsheet in the back that is actually before the charts that I was going to get into later. This does break it down into cases by age, as well as the vaccination percentages. So the graphs part of it, I go through and I take the data that I put on the spreadsheet and I put it into these graphs as well. So the first one is the overall active cases we have, and this is our 10-day caseload. So after 10 days, people come off isolation, I take them off our active case list. So ebb and flow, we're still at 112. We may actually even be up by the time midnight rolls around. When I run the reports, I do the data up until midnight tonight, and then I publish it tomorrow. The next page is our 14-day positive testing rate. And we do have the benefit of weekly testing at Merrimack College, which tests thousands of students and faculty and staff. So this does help our percentages a little bit, but we are seeing, obviously, with the trends of the active cases, same thing with the positivity of the testing rates. The third chart is our 14-day average incident rate, and this is extrapolated over a population of 100,000 people. So it kind of balances out between big cities and small towns to give you an incident rate. We have seen these peaks. We're actually on the way back up again. And the 14-day incident rate is done by the state. On the next page, I break it down and do North Andover's 7-day number, which gives us more of a smaller snapshot than a 2-week window. So as you can see, this last data point on November 11th, our incident rate for North Andover at the 7-day incident rate was up to 38.6. So that's been increasing since the middle of October. Going back up. I'm hoping this comes back down again, but everything's moving inside. We have indoor sports now versus outdoor sports. We've got a lot more indoor birthday parties versus barbecues, things like that. So, and then if you look on the next graph, it's the total tests administered in North Andover over 14 days. See that large jump up on November 11th? There was a little super spreader event at a nearby higher education for Halloween, where a few athletic teams got together and had a big party. And they made everybody that was associated with these teams retest. So the number jumped up significantly over that last little testing period. But so we're seeing these ebbs and flows, we're seeing the peaks, we're seeing the valleys, trying to keep a handle on the numbers. And I know one thing that we've all been interested in, and you guys as doctors, is our hospitalizations. So I've been charting this since the end of July, and we can see it's been pretty steady. It did go up, came back down a little bit, now it's kind of plateaued off, but it's about 527 as of last week. It's similar to that today, actually. So it's kind of plateaued, and we're seeing the same amount of hospitalizations, intubations, and people in ICU. So these numbers I'll get together today for tomorrow, published on the website tomorrow, and I do this spreadsheet part of it, which also talks about vaccination rates. So I get this from the state. I break down our cases by age so we can see where the numbers are trending and where the numbers are going. And if you go onto our website, you can actually tab across every single week, going back to, I believe, September for these numbers. Now that ages 5 to 11 have opened up, this was the first week where we actually had a percentage in the 0 to 11% population partially vaccinated. So that's in the middle of your page, 0 to 11, and we've up to 8% as of the first week. So I have a feeling it's going to go up to probably a lot within this next time period. We did our first 5 to 11 clinic at the high school last Wednesday. We had 400 appointments fill up. When we first put out the link, it filled up in 2 hours. So we extended the time and got more vaccinators, and that filled up in the next day. We had 400 appointments that were booked up within 48 hours. We also opened it up to walk-ins as well, which did strain our program for the first hour. So there was a big mad rush at the beginning, which there was a lot of anticipation and a lot of people excited to go and get there. So the first hour was a little bit rocky, but we got everybody through. We did almost 100 walk-ins in that first hour, as well as all of the appointments. So we did almost 500 vaccinations in the clinic at the high school cafeteria. So I think that was a big success. Also on the spreadsheet, you notice on page 2, I have items to note. The second dose for that clinic is on this, and that's going to be December 2nd. And we're also opening up to December 3rd as well, because there were so many people December on the last one, on November 11th, they decided to spread it out over 2 days. So they're going to open up appointments for boosters and first doses as well. I don't have all the information. We just decided on that today. So hopefully we can get the second clinic up and running on the 2nd, and then the next one on the 3rd to do more ages 5 to 11 to get that last reservoir of hosts hopefully vaccinated as much as possible. Any questions on the clinic or any of the information that we post on a weekly basis?
This vaccine that the children are given, 5 to 11, I had read, well, I read two different numbers. I'm not sure. Is it 1/3 the strength of an adult or 40% of the strength of the adult?
I believe it's 1/3 or half.
Third, I believe.
A
A
third.
third?
Okay. I do want to, North Andover's got a really good vaccination rate. As a town overall, on the first page of the spreadsheet, this is as of last week. As a town, partially vaccinated, we're at 77%, and fully vaccinated, we're at 70%. This will go up, obviously, with the additional clinics we put on, and it will continue to go up throughout the winter. We're trying to encourage, obviously, indoor sports teams and athletes to get vaccinated, because if you are fully vaccinated and you're a close contact, you don't have to quarantine. And that's what we've been trying to tell the students and student athletes, that if you're on an indoor soccer team or indoor volleyball team, basketball team especially, that if you are on a team with a positive case, if you're not vaccinated, you have to quarantine. And that's keeping kids out of school, it's keeping parents home from work, and it's that next hump we want to try to get by. So we've tried to get the information out there and encourage it, I hope people listen and decide to get their children vaccinated, and we'll go from there. But I want to get your perspectives on what you guys are seeing in your practices and out in the real world.
A couple of things I want to go over first, and I'll turn it over to the both of them. And another question. The percentage of people that have been vaccinated in North Andover, that's all ages,
Correct.
all ages.
So if you look on the spreadsheet, I actually break it down by age group. So the first page of the spreadsheet in the box is the age groups, and then percent partially vaccinated and percent fully vaccinated. So that's town census numbers and DPH through the Massachusetts immunization software that tells us who's vaccinated and who's not.
Okay, thank you. Before I turn it over to the doctors, and please, if you two have any further comment, and interject any time. Listening to the politicians, it's been at best difficult to know what to believe concerning the coronavirus. And I feel that most people share that feeling. Early during the presidential campaign, Biden said that if the president had done his job, all the people would still be alive. That's a lie. At that time, about 200,000 Americans died. Since then, well, in total, it's about 766,000 Americans have died, as of this morning, died with the virus. In addition, another 47 million Americans have had the virus. I know in my own family, one of my sisters, she had the 3 Pfizer shots, and now she's sick at home with the virus. So it does happen. Fortunately, she'll be okay. Fortunately, she has her shots. It does happen. And by the way, I slap Biden around, but I feel the same way about the Republicans to a great extent, too. Okay? I don't trust or believe in what the politicians say about the virus. And it's so frustrating. Like every day, I'll spend a little bit of time watching MSNBC and then Fox, the two extremes, and they have nothing in common. Very little in common concerning the virus. But I do trust and respect our doctors on our board, and we're so fortunate to have the both of them. And at that, I'd just like to turn it over to them, talk about what they're seeing in the field and where we are concerning addressing this virus and what are the issues concerned and so forth. So it's all yours, the two of you.
I mean, your specialty is more embedded in this than mine. I see people all the time who have consequences or complications of coronavirus as a gastroenterologist. I mean, it affects many organ systems, and I see a lot of it as a GI guy. Patrick sees more of it because he's an intensive care doctor. So the people that he sees that are sick are different than the people that I see that are sick. But I see a lot of people who are sick after having been sick with coronavirus. Saw someone today who had coronavirus 12 months ago and is still dealing with some of the downstream effects of it in their GI tract. It happens all the time. One of the things that I think is important to remember is that the efficacy of vaccines, we talked about this in this group before, vaccines prevent people from dying. They don't prevent people from getting sick. So people are going to test positive, and people are going, a mild case of coronavirus makes you feel really bad. A mild case. It makes you sit at home, makes you have body aches, makes you have fever, but you're not hospitalized, you're not dying. So these numbers that say that there are people who are sick with coronavirus, I don't doubt that at all. It means the vaccine is probably working because they're not dead with coronavirus in the hospital. So I'm not, breakthrough infections, I think, are part of the beast. I think the other thing to remember is that not all of these vaccines are created equal. So if someone got a vaccine that has progressively waning immunity, like the J&J vaccine we're learning had, and they don't get boosted from it, the likelihood that they're going to be protected against severe infections is much less than if they had gotten either Moderna or Pfizer or Moderna. At least that's what the data is showing. And that the importance of boosters is critical for maintaining safety in people when they get sick. So that was that's my lesson from here, is that the boosters, this is not a two and done shot. This is 2 or 1 and a booster shot. It's marketed as 2 and done. It's not 2 and done. You got it. The boosters are as critical as their first 2 shots of this phase of the virus.
Earlier this year, at a meetings, we didn't have to wear a mask, and now we do again. What's your sense how long this will go on for? I know it's a judgmental call, but
It's not a judgmental call.
not.
I think that when you look at prevalence of disease, you do what you can to protect yourself from transmitting it or getting it. So when numbers are like they are here in North Andover, the signs go up on the door and mask up. And when the numbers go down like they were in July, masks come down, as long as there are people who are adequately protected and the prevalence of the virus is low enough so that you're not going to hurt somebody by carrying it and giving it to somebody.
when I said judgmental call, I'm talking about, do you see us 6 months, a year from now, or is this impossible to say?
Who knows? I mean, I think that this could go any number of ways. But my guess is that we're gonna come in waves of this thing, and it may be something that we up here in this country, especially in this part of the country where every winter we come inside and we're not outside quite as much. We may see these peaks for years. And this virus has shown this virus has shown an ability to mutate pretty aggressively. So fortunately, the vaccine was effective against the Delta virus, but it's not inconceivable that it'll mutate some way in which the vaccines are not as protective. Fortunately, Pfizer's come out with a therapeutic that looks really promising in terms of preventing hospitalizations and death after people getting infected. And there are even ways that they're talking about putting nasal sprays to prevent transmission. So there is hope that you can get sort of at the virus itself. But I think, Joe, we're looking at this for the long haul here.
I was reading about Pfizer's way of protecting people that have the virus. I think it's called Paxlovid. It hasn't been approved yet, but hopefully it'll be approved soon.
The FDA, the Pfizer went to the FDA 2 days ago for emergency use approval.
But it hasn't been approved yet, though. Usually
I
it takes a
would-
couple of weeks, I believe.
Yeah, hopefully
Yeah.
soon.
There are 2 ways you fight infection, Joe. You prevent it and you treat it. Or you die of it.
Yeah, so vaccinations and therapeutics, that's the key. I think as we progress forward in this, the more people that get vaccinated, the better your immune response is moving forward. So a novel virus coming through, you have no immunity, you have no protection, and that's when it hit us really hard last spring. I think as our vaccination rates go up, the people that do get infected have much less severe reaction to the virus and prevents them from going to the hospital and prevents them from dying. So the more people that get vaccinated, the less severe the illness will be moving forward. And once everybody's vaccinated, if it ever gets to that point, then you have natural immunity or herd immunity through all of your vaccinations. And then what's your opinion on natural immunity?
Well, compounded with vaccination or superior to a vaccination or
Just the standalone natural immunity versus vaccination or vaccination and natural immunity.
boy,
That's me
I
on
haven't
its
seen
own.
I haven't seen the granular detail about people who were documented with COVID
Yeah.
and then got immunized and got COVID again, but I've anecdotally seen it.
Okay.
And I haven't seen the difference. I don't know if you have the data on that.
No, the only data I saw was just, have the virus and then there's a strong boost after
Yeah.
getting the vaccine.
Yep.
That seems to be the most prevalent boost of immunity.
I've heard that too. That if you had it and you're vaccinated, you got double whammy.
But you can still get it.
Correct. But I think your chance at any severe illness at that point is so low.
But remember that people who have been vaccinated or have had it before can harbor the virus and
Yep.
spread it.
Yes. Exactly.
So if you're having positive tests, you got to mitigate those. You got to mitigate that as much as you can. All of us, I assume, in this room have been vaccinated, but we're all still wearing masks because the prevalence in this area is high enough that you protect yourself against it.
So actually, on the back page of the spreadsheet, I do go into the data for vaccine info and talks about the breakthrough cases and the hospitalizations, of those breakthrough cases and the deaths. So obviously, the death rate of people who are vaccinated is 0.01%, which is much lower than the mortality rate of people who are unvaccinated.
And I'm sure you do too. Again, you can speak more loudly to this than I see people in the hospital who've been vaccinated. It happens.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
a lot of those people have comorbid disease, so they're sort of a setup for having a worse outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Comorbid means they have other medical problems.
The
So-
Mass has had 58,607 breakthrough cases since they've just started tracking breakthrough cases. So it does happen, and we see it here. And on the first page, I even tell you the number per age and the number that have been vaccinated. So
Yep.
we're seeing it a lot more than what the state's reporting at the 1.2%. And obviously, they're talking about immunity waning over time. So once you get vaccinated, 8 months down the road, you're more susceptible to get it than somebody who was just vaccinated a month ago. So we are seeing waning immunity, and I think this 1.2% is going to steadily go up until people get boosters.
Well, I'm sure there's gonna come a point where we're gonna be considering people who did not get a booster to be unvaccinated,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
Too.
I think when you get people who got the J&J are almost there. The J&J vaccine has waned in immunity down to 20% or so protection after 6 months.
Mhm.
So you got to get boosted. It's just as you say. They're somewhat protected,
Yeah.
but not like they were.
Joe, so from my standpoint, I have the luxury, or not so much luxury, of being an ICU doc and seeing the most critically ill patients. But then also, from a pulmonary standpoint, in the office, I see patients coming in with persistent shortness of breath 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, a year after contracting COVID. And a lot of them are complaining of multiple symptoms, which we've kind of now clumped together into this, what's called post-COVID syndrome. Brain fog, shortness of breath, just generalized fatigue lasting for up to patients that had COVID last April and still having, April, May, June, those similar symptoms. I have seen a little bit of literature of that the vaccine, kind of the way with shingles, for instance. You can still get shingles with the shingles vaccine, but what the shingles vaccine is the most effective for is something called post-herpetic neuralgia, the pain that can last for years or even potentially for the rest of people's lives. The vaccine is very effective with that. And obviously it's very effective for preventing shingles as well. But I've seen some data, particularly with children, is that the vaccine is very helpful with helping to alleviate post-COVID syndrome in children, because I think a lot of parents are saying, well, all we're seeing is that kids are not as affected by COVID as adults are. Yes, that is true. Who knows what the next variant could bring for kids? So that's one reason to get vaccinated. But also, too, at the very least, if you had to harness any type of energy to get kids vaccinated, it could help alleviate that potential for post-COVID syndrome in kids. And I think what Max was alluding to is that people are coming into the ICU less. The ICU is not busting at the seams of everybody on ventilators from COVID as they were back a year ago, a year and a half ago. And so the vaccine is clearly doing its job. Hospitalizations are pretty stagnant. Kind of just looking at the numbers, they've been pretty stagnant over the last couple of months, but less people are dying. And I even will, if I see a pulmonary consult, a lung consult in the hospital because of somebody who has COVID and they're more short of breath or they're requiring a little bit of oxygen, the amount of times that patients will tell me is, yes, I've got vaccinated. I can't imagine where I would be if I wasn't vaccinated. And a lot of times I'd say there's a very good chance you probably won't even be talking to me right now. So it's exhausting personally from a provider standpoint to go to work every day and to take care of unvaccinated people, and I just ask just people to get vaccinated, get your boosters, get your kids vaccinated. My son is 5. He went to the vaccine clinic last week. He
Mine's
did
10. He was
awesome.
there.
He did awesome, and
Yeah.
it didn't even bat an eyelash.
So these people that are hospitalized, how are they treated? Is it, I read Remdesivir, that's one of the drugs that's used, but what do you do? How do you treat them?
There is no significantly good data that shows that really any of these medications are truly beneficial, with the exception of the vaccine. But for critical illness, meaning you're requiring a high amount of oxygen, steroids. Steroids have really been the only thing that have improved survival in patients with severe COVID and respiratory failure from COVID. Honestly, I haven't seen
The
any of these.
remdesivir data is not good.
Remdesivir it's in the water, and everybody gets remdesivir in the hospital. The data,
Doesn't do much.
yeah,
It's not good.
not good.
But that's why this Pfizer thing is
That's
such
not
a
what
big
some of
deal.
the talking heads said onto you.
Well, that's old, but that's old.
And that's the frustration
Well, but that
that
was,
some of us go through.
but when remdesivir came out, the initial studies were really promising, because people were grasping at straws, and they were really hopeful that it would work. And some of the studies initially looked pretty good, but when you teased out the data and looked, well, did they get remdesivir and steroids or whatever, you found out that the real thing that made a difference, steroids in people who were really critically ill.
There's actually, I read the New England Journal of Medicine came out today, and there was a study looked at convalescent plasma, which we used to give, still sometimes we'll give. Actually, the data was pretty terrible with that too.
Yeah. So that's people who have gotten COVID, recovered, have a bunch of antibodies. You give someone who's sick antibodies from somebody else in hopes that it will treat the virus, and it's not great.
So what about the therapeutic you were talking about, Pfizer? What's the outlook, prognosis? What's your opinion? What have you heard? What have you seen?
So the data, the published data is, but remember, published data from remdesivir was great.
Mhm.
So published data from this drug looks tremendous. It looks like it can work really, really well in people after they've been infected to minimize hospitalizations. And that's why the FDA, my guess is going to put emergency use authorization and send it through, because the
Okay.
data looks great.
And then keep compiling data.
Then
and
we'll see what the
forming
data,
another
we'll see
opinion.
what happens.
Because back in the day, the peak last year, we were at 4,000 hospitalizations in Massachusetts. We're at 500 now, so that has been significantly lower for a long time now, which is really good. Now it's just being able to treat the last 500 people with something that is more prone to work, I think is that next step. Vaccinations and therapeutics is the key to helping get past this and helping protect everybody.
So as I was talking to you guys before the meeting, the thing that frightens me is what's happening in Europe,
Yes.
which is that in Europe, cases are, they're shutting down again. So in Germany, they're shutting down. In Austria, they're confining people who haven't been immunized to their homes. The cases, the rate of spread of this disease in Europe is bad. And historically, we've sort of followed the trend of Europe. So I think that there's a good chance in the next 4 to 6 weeks, our numbers, the graph is going to show another little bump. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
You're killing me here.
It wouldn't surprise me. Would it surprise you?
No, not at all. Everything I'm seeing is just trending in the wrong direction.
I've been seeing this for the last month, every week. Up
We're all
and
getting
up
together
and
for
up.
Thanksgiving. We're getting together for the holidays. The immunity is waning.
Yep.
I think a lot of people aren't running to the boosters the way they ran to the initial vaccines. They're thinking that I'm immunized, I'm fine. And I think that the messaging around boosters has been really sort of odd. How we've had these boosters available now for, I got my booster 2 months ago, I guess, or
Yeah.
6 weeks ago, and it was withheld. So because I guess they're worried about the politics and the supply or whatever. And it's not until just today that Massachusetts said, it was today, they said anyone
Yeah,
over 18
that's
can
right.
get it. You don't have to have some medical condition or be in a big exposed environment. But when they announced the vaccine availability, remember how hard it was to get the vaccine? People were scrambling on websites, and you had people try to backdoor their way in and stuff.
Now it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
I'm glad they did open it up to everybody now for boosters. We did our teacher booster clinics, and we did non-employee booster clinics, and we had our general population booster clinic last week. Greater Lawrence Community Health Center said they had plenty. They wanted to give it out to anybody who wanted it. Teachers are in a highly exposed environment with the number of students in an indoor setting, so they were first on the list. Those were very well received. We had hundreds of teachers line up and get their boosters at the high school and the middle school.
Yeah.
So that was very good. I'm glad we were able to put that on, and I'm glad the uptake was as good as it was.
I think I think that the public health messaging there has to just be loud and clear that this is part of your immunization. This is not sort of
An option.
an option. No, this is part of your immunization This is
Yep.
part of your immunization path. And I don't know. I haven't heard that messaging that loudly.
I haven't either. I think maybe now that it just opened up to everybody over 18, that will hopefully start to happen at the state level. TV, mainstream media, radio, things like that is where most people get their information.
Yeah.
We try to do as much as we can here with our little social media channels.
Yeah.
And people do believe and do hear it and do actually take our advice sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's actually good to see.
Imaging, the messaging on the radio is get immunized, and so people who were previously immunized with the J&J vaccine think they're immunized.
I'm thinking Mac Jones and Tom Brady dual commercial together.
There you go. Not Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Although we did well on Jeopardy.
We did do
Yeah.
Jeopardy.
So we're gearing up for the long haul, for the winter, for the holidays, for hopefully not a sustained peak, but the way it's been trending, it's been going up, like I said, for the last month. We did hire a public health nurse.
Great.
We did our second interviews, and we made an offer. She accepted it. Carolyn Lamb starts December 6th, Monday. We can't wait to have her on board.
Great.
We still do have our per diem nurses helping out. One of the big things that worries us right now is the CTC is shutting down. That's the contract tracing collaborative that the state funded and put on is shutting down. They're not taking any cases past November 30th, just in time for the post-Thanksgiving peak, Christmas and New Year's. So, with that being said, they are looking to prioritize contact tracing to priority groups. For instance, congregate care, elderly housing, students, things like that are going to be given more priority to do the follow-up because it takes time. The phone calls, the emails, the sending the information, getting their close contacts from positive people and then calling, it's a whole rigmarole for each individual positive case, which is why the CTC was such a big help, but the state is shutting it down just in time
So
for...
when you do contact tracing, though, are you asking people as your first question, have you been vaccinated?
That's part of it, yes. There's
And
a
if
whole...
they've been vaccinated, are they done being contact traced?
If they're a positive person, no.
Now they're positive. If they're traced if they're a contact of someone who's documented positive, and
If they are a close contact of a positive patient and they say they've been vaccinated, we can check that, obviously. If they've been vaccinated, they're not considered a close contact. However, they have to self-monitor. We tell them, if you have any symptoms, allergy-like, cold-like, anything, get tested. But you don't have to quarantine. I guess that's one of the perks of being vaccinated is you don't have to quarantine.
Yeah.
If you are exposed, you just have to keep an eye on yourself, be honest. Don't spread it to your kid's soccer team. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, cancel the birthday party,
Yeah.
which I actually had a resident in town here. His son was a close contact, and he had a van booked and 40 hockey tickets bought for a college hockey game and a birthday party for his son 3 days later. And he's like, what do I do? I go, I'm not the birthday party police. However, what I recommend you do is you have to postpone it. You don't want to have your son turn around and be positive and infect an entire birthday party in a van and a hockey game and a pizza party. So it's the hard things, hard choices people have to make. But if that child is vaccinated, he wouldn't have been a close contact to the positive case, and they would have had the birthday party. And chances are, 98% effective, I hope, that it wouldn't have gone to that next step. But so if you're a close contact and you're vaccinated, you don't have to quarantine. You do have to self-monitor. If you aren't vaccinated, you have to quarantine for at least 7 days, full 7 days, at least on day 8, if you test negative after day 5. It's very hard to explain that to people.
Yeah.
But we have a chart and everything. But we do our best. Choose your own adventure, okay? So we're trying to do that with every case. Granted, we're gonna have to do a lot more once the CTC shuts down, because they took a huge chunk of that burden off of our shoulders, and we mainly focused on younger populations and families. So if a father got it, okay, this is what's gonna happen. This is what you have to do. Your kids are close contacts, quarantine them, isolate from them, get them tested, and go from there. But if it's a student, then we get the schools involved. We do the school contact tracing, our sports, birthday
Unless they're
parties,
vaccinated.
carpools.
Yeah,
Huh?
unless
Unless
they're
they're
vaccinated.
vaccinated.
Well, this was before last
Pre-vaccinated,
week,
right.
when anybody under 11, or 11 and under, and we're talking, 8-year-olds,
Yeah.
Johnny's soccer team, and all that kind of stuff.
We still get an email if, like, my younger daughter's half vaccinated now, but my older one is fully, and we still get an email saying, like, Kaylee was a close contact at middle school, but because she's vaccinated, self-monitor, so.
Self-monitor,
I still get those emails,
and we try to express to people,
yeah.
if you think you just have a little sniffle or a cold, it might not be just a cold. Or if it feels like allergies, it might not just be allergies. Because we've had that a lot. Oh, it's allergies, so I went to work. And you tested positive, so it wasn't allergies. Now your whole office is in quarantine.
The other thing I've heard a lot of is because there was so much focus on the temperature checks for so long, people just assumed that COVID and temperatures go, and fevers
Yep.
go hand in hand. And I've heard lots of parents like, well, I did the temperature check. And I'm like,
Yep.
but that's not. So I think just reminding people that you can
There's
have
more
COVID
than-
without a fever,
Yes.
especially in
Stuffy
children.
nose, sniffle, slight headache could be symptoms. Scratchy throat. Those are all the minor symptoms that people mistake for allergies or a light cold for actual COVID. So, all right, nurse starts on December 6th. I'm extremely happy about that. Contact tracing is shutting down at the state level, so we're going to have to pick that up. I'm going on vacation for 10 days, so I'm going to give everything to Steve. We are working on animal regulations. I had Laura pull some other local regulations up, started drafting something for North Andover. I will get those to you guys hopefully next meeting. I thought I'd be able to get to some of the stuff, but with everything picking back up and not having a nurse, everything just kind of gets pushed aside, unfortunately. But we're almost there. Animal regs next month.
Great.
Just for like a first read, you guys, I'll send them out, look them over, and we'll do something other than COVID.
Well, speaking of COVID, earlier this week, I went online and I looked at the agendas of a number of other cities and towns in Massachusetts. It's basically the same as ours. All COVID. And I'm saying to myself, well, gee, we have several doctors on our board, your wealth of experience, not to take anything away from anyone else here. And so I just wanted to change the direction that our meeting is going to make it a little bit more educational and informative. And what you all provided today was really, really good. And I hope that we continue with such going forward, as long as we have to deal with this virus. So thank you very, very much.
Zika?
Yeah, I know.
That was years ago, it feels like. 2018 was the last time we did something other than this, I think, maybe?
18,
Probably.
And I have
Somewhere
one
in
other
there.
point I'd like to make, and I did speak with Steve about it earlier this week. Puff bars. Want to comment on that, Steve? Yeah. Where we stand?
So, yeah, I did have a couple minutes to jump into this. So puff bars are, based on our regulations, they would fall under both the definition of an electronic cigarette and a tobacco product. Directly from the website, the first line in the About section states, puffs nicotine-based products are created with tobacco-free nicotine. Our definition of a tobacco product is any product containing, made, or derived from tobacco or nicotine intended for human consumption. And then electronic cigarette also defines that as any device composed of a mouthpiece, heating element, battery, and/or electronic circuits that provides vapor of liquids regardless of nicotine content, or relies on vaporization of any solid or liquid substance, and that one goes on a little further. But between those two, it basically categorizes that as both an electronic cigarette and a tobacco product. In our regs, I was talking to Brian about this yesterday, but it's crazy that the last public health emergency was around electronic cigarettes, and then we got hit with COVID right after. But in Section 15 of our tobacco regulations, it discusses the sale of electronic cigarettes prohibited, and relevant to that, it says, consistent with Governor Baker's September 24th, 2019 declaration of a public health emergency, no person shall sell, distribute, or cause to be sold or distributed any vaping product as defined herein. If the public health emergency ban has been deemed to be resolved or rescinded, sale of electronic cigarettes and all vaping products or accessories will be restricted to adult-only retail establishments. And the state actually has a chart that defines what establishments can sell what product. As far as unflavored e-cigarettes go, those can be sold by adult-only tobacco stores and smoking bars. But as far as flavored cigarettes go, which pertains more, or flavored e-cigarettes go, which pertains more towards the puff bars, they're all categorized by flavor. Those can only be sold by smoking bars, and those aren't in North Andover. So the puff bars shouldn't be sold in North Andover.
Because I read about them earlier this week in the Globe, and basically it's a synthetic nicotine, and as such, the manufacturer is skirting the law. And you can even buy it. I read online, and it comes with different flavors like watermelon, so on and so forth. It's a real problem, particularly with kids in high school, kids in junior high school. And in fact, 26% of the students in junior high school that have used these electronic cigarettes have now switched over to puff bars. It's even more popular than Juul right now. So again, it's a synthetic cigarette, but rest assured our regulations are really tight. We updated them a year or two ago, and they cannot and they will not be sold here in North Andover anywhere.
Correct. Good.
Okay?
On our community health assessment, made some progress with that. After I spoke to Andrew Wolk, I had a Zoom with Andover, with Health Resources in Action as well. Then I had one with Andover and Health Resources in Action to try to partner up. And we got them to give us a proposal. We are now going to take that and formulate an RFP, which is a request for proposals, and put that out for mainstream bid. So we're moving forward on it. It's been slow going with our schedules, but we look to have an RFP done probably sometime in January.
That's great.
So getting the framework of that done and everything that's involved with that written out and then published is the next big step in how we want to do it. So that's about entire health assessment and then coming up with programs and then monitoring those programs to address different health disparities that we have in town and just finding out what they are and then addressing them and then monitoring the programs. So well underway. I'll give you guys the report sometime next week, and hopefully we'll get it published after the holidays.
Great.
I know we covered a lot tonight, particularly concerning the virus, but what you just went over, that is huge. And it's pretty exciting. And
It's a lot.
you, with input from people like Max, very impressive. So keep up the good work.
I have actually another question. Is there
Sure.
any way that you guys can put on the Board of Health website a link to to a PDF file for healthcare proxies?
Yeah.
To
Yeah,
be,
sure.
because this is a huge issue, and since transitioning from New Hampshire practice back down to Massachusetts practice, so Massachusetts is very strict into who can make medical decisions for anybody who cannot make decisions for themselves, whether they have dementia, they come into the hospital with altered mentation, or particularly in the ICU if they're on a ventilator and they're in a medically induced coma, or they're in a coma for other reasons, they cannot make decisions for themselves. In a hospital, hospitals are able to have policies in place that say that, for the lack of a better word, it's really a next of kin, where if I believe it falls first to, if you're married, it falls to your spouse. Then after that, I believe it's alive children above the age of 18. Then after that, it's an alive parent. But if you do not have a healthcare proxy, and most healthy people don't think of this, but it is extremely important. If you are subsequently a dementia, for instance, and you come into the hospital and you don't have a healthcare proxy, even if you have a wife, a husband, kids, it still has to go to the state, to a judge, to be appointed as a guardian, which could be a family member, or outsourced to a public guardian within the state. But if you have a simple piece of paper that does not need to be notarized, it does not even need to be signed by anybody who is to be the healthcare proxy. If it's just signed by 2 witnesses, and the person filling out the healthcare proxy, that is it. That is worth a weight in gold.
Interesting.
Yes.
So, and it's a huge issue on so many levels. I see it mainly from an ICU standpoint. Why the state doesn't have regulations of, you come in for a surgery, you should have it should automatically be made that you fill out a healthcare proxy. Simple outpatient procedures like colonoscopies, endoscopies, bronchoscopies, any of that. Why it's not I'm going to have a seizure in a minute. Why you don't have a healthcare proxy filled out? It's just so imperative on so many levels. I think it would be helpful to put that access on the website. We can certainly do a lecture at the senior center.
I have someone that I can connect you with, actually. So she has a company, she's an attorney, and she started a company based on that. So if you'd like me to connect you.
Oh, that would be awesome.
I will
That'd be
definitely
awesome.
do that.
It's just getting that education
Yeah,
out there in
she-
such a simple
she's
form
really-
to do.
And she walks you through the website, how to get there and so forth. So I'm will explain it, so I'll connect you guys via email.
Okay, yeah, you give me a PDF if you have one.
I definitely.
That would be
Yeah,
awesome.
perfect.
Yeah, we'll blast it out, put it on our webpage.
And I mean,
maybe-
that's something that really could be brought into the senior center too. It's huge. So, I'm not talking because you're a senior, but you know, so involved.
You can't tell the mask is on.
Yeah.
Funny, we ask
Anything
everybody-
else?
We ask everybody before they get a colonoscopy if they have a healthcare proxy. And if they say no, then that's the end of the conversation. It's interesting. You know,
Yeah.
We ask, and if they say
You're
no,
not given like a tool at that point to say.
they're not, no.
Yeah. That,
No.
you'd probably close the gap
Here's
just by
the form,
asking
fill
that
it out.
second question.
That's right, that's all you gotta
Yeah, and then it gets scanned into
Right.
the medical records, and then other hospitals can, family will say, oh, my husband was at Lowell General, or, at Dr. Tilson's office,
Right.
because, and yeah, I think I remember they filled out okay, we'll just call Dr. Tilson's office, and it's scanned into the EMR, okay, just send it over to the hospital, great, done. And it can be 15 years old.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great, good idea.
Is
If
there a
you want
motion?
like that, let me know.
A motion to
Oh.
adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.